This video demonstrates potentially what a Excel-based reporting system for Sogas could look like. This is a spreadsheet that I pulled up, and it has different tabs on it based on different kind of major report areas. And when you click on a tab, or when you click on a button, like in this case a chart of accounts that doesn't really have any kind of criteria associated with it, it just builds a SQL statement. And then what would happen normally is if you, let me close this, that build a new worksheet, put that SQL statement on. What would normally happen is if I had this checked where it auto-executed, then when I clicked on chart of accounts, then it would go ahead and execute that SQL statement. Now in this case I don't really have a database hooked up to this, but anyway, different tabs represent different major reporting areas. Like this is the receivables area, you put in criteria up in here and then you execute it. What I do have hooked up is for the general ledger detail. I have an area up in here where you put in different pieces of criteria, so you could put in, say, the 10th month, the 11th month, and the 12th month, and then you could put in different companies separated by commas, where you could look for accounts 300,000 and 499,999, for instance. And after you put in the criteria, you come down here and you simply click on execute SQL or execute query. Now there's a lot of stuff down here because this is a pretty sophisticated system, this Lawson financial system, so I believe that your interface would look a lot more straightforward than this. But anyway, after a user enters data or the criteria, what happens is they could click on this, or what I'm going to show you first is this. What it does is this reporting system builds that SQL statement based on that criteria. So if I scroll down here, you can see those are the accounting months, that's the year, that's the company code, and then that's the accounting unit code, and that's the account coding that they're looking for. So that's the first thing that it actually does, but instead of building the SQL statement and looking at it, they could just click this directly. And what that does is it builds that same SQL statement and then it automatically executes it and brings the data over to here. So that's what the purpose of that is right there. And what it does, it makes the data immediately available at the user's fingertips. And they don't really have to know SQL, and that's the purpose of building this whole interface behind here is when they do click on this or this, they're able to get the SQL statement behind it. And there's a lot of different reports that are behind here. As I said in my email, we could generate these SQL statements based on the reports that you've already written. The major difference being is that when data is available inside a spreadsheet environment like this, it gets users to thinking about that. Something that's also interesting or pretty nice is they could actually come into an empty cell and type a SQL statement into an empty cell, execute that SQL statement, or highlight it and then execute it. And there's an example of that. So it's just a super handy thing to have. It allows them to generate so many more things, so many more processes in an automated fashion than having to rely on pre-written reports. They get to looking at stuff like this and they begin to understand kind of the table structures and whatnot behind the reports. For instance, if I clicked on this again, they could possibly, depending on the user, come down here and they could start seeing, like I said, where some of that data was and start building their own little mini reporting systems and mini processes. Anyway, I hope this video explains a little bit about kind of the direction that I would want to go as far as building a reporting system for Sogas. I know it was pretty abbreviated because I wanted to get this all in a short movie.